Venezuela is becoming a hub for Russians and Eastern Europeans overall in Latin America. Today we discuss.
Welcome to Venezuela Insider, the only place in Venezuela for expats, digital nomads, entrepreneurs, investors, travelers, and related internationals. For more information, venezuelainsider.com.
On the past few years, we have receiving a bunch of Russian nationals in Venezuela for many reasons, regarding tourism, of course, also government operations and government agencies coming on the country, also some Russian investments. Some of the major Russian oil companies have a slight presence within Venezuela, and also just average Russian people that wants to come to visit the country. They like Latin America, and actually they have an easy access to the Venezuelan market. Why this thing is happening? What this is the case, and Russians are having increasingly more presence in Venezuela? Well, the answer is simple. It's just politics. Venezuela has excellent diplomatic relationships with the Russian government. Of course, the President Maduro has a good relationship with Vladimir Putin. And actually, the Russian foreign minister, the Chancellor, Sergei Lavrov, has visited quite a few times the country. You can see him here visiting Venezuela. Well, and of course, that paved the way in order to Russians to visit the country, work on the country, maybe invest on the country, or just simply come as tourists. Now, how the Russian presence in Venezuela is actually performing in the country? Well, that's what we are discussing today. Let's start by politics. That's actually the trailblazer for the Russian presence in Venezuela. Like I said previously, the government here, the local government, Maduro and company have good relationship with the Russian government, mostly because their ties, they have ties, these countries, quote-unquote, I'm going to call anti-American countries just for the sake of the conversation. Same thing with China and Iran and places like that. Okay, very good. I'm not going to get too much deep on Venezuelan politics. But the main issue is that actually the Russians, let's say the diplomats, feel very comfortable visiting the country, and they consider Maduro an ally, so they can easily do some things here in the country without interference and so much bureaucracy that they will find in other places in Latin America and the rest of the world. That's why we have a bunch of Russian government employees on the country, and also regarding security services and so on. So that's why you see on the major cities in Venezuela some Russian presence. After that, we have to talk about the investments, quote-unquote investments, of Russian companies within the country. And actually we have presence of the three major oil companies from Russia, the Russian oil companies. Those companies are Gazprom, Rosneft, and Lukoil. And many employees, engineers, and directors, and so on, have actually physical presence in Venezuela. So they are, good paid expats that come to the country, to Venezuela, have very good standards of living. They maybe purchase a real estate property or just stay on a fancy area on one of the major Venezuelan cities. In some particular cases, they have actually married Venezuelan females, and of course, there is some talent regarding that. And what happens with these kind of people, that actually they integrate, kind of quote-unquote good, fairly good, on Venezuelan society, because actually Russians are very fun people, very cool people to hang out with. Of course, they have their particular nuances that they have to deal with, but on the most part, they actually are cool people to hang out. And actually, females from Venezuela hang out pretty cool, pretty great with Russian men, and also Russian females, they hang out pretty cool, they get along pretty well with Venezuelan men. Now I have to mention the situation regarding tourism. And this thing, actually, this is from a couple years ago, when we start receiving Russian tourists that come on chartered planes and with very particular touristic packages to Margarita Island, and also, of course, to the city of Caracas, the capital. And that happened before the situation, the war on Ukraine. But after that, you have to remember that basically the Russian citizens were ostracized from the rest of the world. They are not getting approved tourist visas for most of the biggest, most famous, popular tourist destinations on the world, like that are on the Western Europe or United States or many of these places. Well, also you have to take into account that the Russian passport actually is not great regarding access visa-free travel to most nations. However, Venezuela is not the case. The Russian passport is very good in order to just enter the country. Basically, you can just walk back to the country and do your own thing. So many people lately, let's say working class people from the Russian Federation, are coming to the country. They're having good time because, the thing about Russia is that they have, 6 months on the year, it's very cold, so they cannot enjoy beaches and places of that nature. And what happens is, Venezuela is a beautiful Caribbean destination, and they can enjoy the beaches all year round and have, the typical cool Latin experience that you may have on places like Cancun or Rio de Janeiro or Cartagena, places of that, like that. But it's easier for them, I have to say, coming to Venezuela than going to other places in Latin America. Now, the issue that the last cohort of Russians visiting the country, like I said, those are people that they have blue-collar professions, so they don't make that much. They're not fancy or sophisticated, just average people. They want to travel. And also, on some cases, it's cheaper for them to visit Venezuela than actually visit the high-end touristic destinations within Russia itself. The other thing that happens, and this is the issue that I'm getting lately, especially from my contacts in Margarita Island, is that usually these people, they are not accustomed of the cost of living. They cannot assimilate the cost of living in Venezuela that is greater than most international standards. Something that I mention every time, basically, that I do a video. And Russians are no exception. They think that Venezuela is a very dirt cheap place to visit, and it's not the case. And they see the situation is when they go out of their hotels and resorts, especially on Margarita Island, and they want to go to a restaurant or maybe a market or a mall, a shopping mall, a place like that, and they see the prices, and they start negotiating and haggling and bartering with the owners of the places, of the stores and so on. And actually Margarita is quote unquote cheaper than most of the Venezuelan destinations, and they still don't like the prices. And an information that I get a lot from people in Margarita Island that actually they don't want to care towards Russians because they have become difficult clients. Unsophisticated, they usually cheap and frugal. This is the reports that I'm getting, by the way. This is not my opinion. And actually they are kind of avoiding dealing with Russian clients, although a handful of places actually are catering towards Russians, and they have even Russian languages, letters and signs, and for instance in restaurants they have menus on Russian. And well, very good, and that's up to them. Every business owner is doing their own thing, they have their own strategies. But it's a funny thing, it's a funny situation that I've seen also dealing with the locals on Margarita Island. Depending on the case, you can have a very good experience with Russians and not so much good experience with Russians as well. But actually, what I get overall is actually cool people to hang out with. My experience with Russians has been actually quite good. I have to say, Russian men are actually cool men to hang out with, maybe have a beer or to have a coffee, something like that. And Russian females, of course, are Russian females. I'm not going to say otherwise. At the end, we are going to see an increase of Russian presence in Venezuela, most likely yes. But most of the time it's going to be on the tourism side. They're going to visit other places in Venezuela, not just Margarita Island. By the moment, the structure is just to visit Margarita Island, but I'm sure they're going to expand the destinations within Venezuela. And we're going to have maybe more of a heterogeneous pool of Russian tourists. People maybe can live on Siberia, or people that can live in Moscow, or one of these republics, these independent republics within Russia, like in Kazan, places like that. So we want to see, yes, we want to see more presence on the near future, and also the country, Venezuela, is opening up to other destinations. For instance, apparently we're going to have charter flights from Warsaw, Poland, to Margarita Island. So, of course, Russians and Polish are not the same people. I get it, there are differences. But we're going to start receiving more Eastern European visitors on the near future, and it's going to be a funny thing to see, and maybe some opportunities on the way.
Thank you for watching Venezuela Insider. Please like, share, and subscribe. Follow us on social media. If you want to work with us, VenezuelaInsider.com. Thanks again and have a nice day.